and welcome back. In this lecture, we'll continue our discussion on facet grids. Let's look at an example of a facet grid from our previous lecture. So we'll call and initialize the facet grid function and then use the map function to map it to one of Matplotlib's functions. Okay. As before, we'll save it in a variable called x. So we'll start by calling the facet grid function, and then we'll be using the tips dataset for our columns and rows. Let's pass for column, let's use time. Okay. And for our row, what did we use in the previous lecture? We used smoker. And then let's call the map function and map our facet grid to Matplotlib's scatter function. So plt.scatter, and then we'll pass total bill and then tip. The scatter function takes at least 2 arguments, so we have to provide at least 2 arguments. Let's run this. So we have smoker, yes and no, time, lunch and dinner. Another thing we can do is we can pass the hue attribute, and so instead of using smoker as a row, we can pass the hue argument and show a legend here as smoker, yes and no. Let's see how we can do that. So I'll copy this here, paste it in a new cell. So for column we have time, and instead of row we'll use the hue attribute, and for hue we'll set it to smoker. So when we map it, we have our scatter function, we have our total bill and tip. So if I run this as it is right now, let me show you what we will get. So we'll have time, lunch and dinner, right? We have our total bill and tip. There's only one thing missing. Our hue is missing, right? So I know that we have blue and green. So one of the colors is for smoker and the other color is for non-smoker. So the only thing we are missing is a legend here. So how can we add a legend? To add a legend, we will call the add legend function. So by calling that add legend function, we'll be able to display a legend here. So what we'll do is we'll call the add legend function on this entire object here. Okay, so that add underscore legend, that's the function. Let's close our bracket. Okay, if we run it now, let's run it. Okay, now we have a legend. Smoker, yes and no. Yes is for blue, is for yes, and green is for no. And we have our time, lunch and dinner and total bill. So by passing smoker as hue, we have 2 less legends. I mean 2 less grids, right? Otherwise we would have gotten 4 different facets of grids of facets. So that's another thing we can do with our facet grids. Next, let's map our facet grid to the boxplot function that Seaborn has. Okay, let's do that. So x is equal to sns.facet grid, and then we'll be using the tips dataset. For column, let's use the day column. Okay, and we'll map our object to Seaborn's boxplot, and let's pass total bill and time. So this boxplot function takes at least 2 attributes. So what do you think we will get if we run the cell? Let me run it and show you. So here we have a box plot. We have total bill here and time, lunch or dinner, right? And another thing we can do is, let me copy this, paste it here. We can change the position of total bill and time. So if we want our time to be displayed as a row, we can change this position. So time, comma, total bill, and run it. So we have time. I think this is much better or easier to look at than the previous facet grid. So here for time we have lunch and dinner and total bill paid. Day we have Thursday, Friday, Saturday and Sunday. So that's our facet grid mapped to the boxplot function. And we can apply some attributes to our facet grid here. For instance, we can change the size by calling the size function, and let's say 5 and see what it looks like. So that's a size 5. If we change the size to 2, for instance, it's much smaller. Let's say 7. We have that. And another attribute that we can pass is called aspect, and we can change the aspect to different values. Let's try 1. So aspect 1, let's try 0.2. Okay, so you can play around with these values until you get a nice proportion. Okay, I think this looks nicer. Let me change the size to maybe 4, maybe 6. I think I like this. So you can change the size and aspect ratios to different values. Another thing we can do is change the order in which the days are displayed. So here the days go from Thursday through Sunday. If we want, we can change the order. For that, we'll be passing the column order attribute. Okay, let me copy this thing and show you. So here we have facet grid tips, column is day, and we'll pass the column order attribute to change the order in which the days are displayed. Let's do that. So we have column underscore order, and we'll pass the list of days we want to be displayed, the order of the list of days. Let's start with Saturday and maybe Thursday. I want Saturday to be displayed first, and then Thursday, followed by Sunday maybe, and finally Friday. So you can change it to any order that you want. Let's run it again. Oh, I'm missing a comma here. Run it again. So now we have the order that we specified: Saturday followed by Thursday, then Sunday and Friday. And if you want to change the color, you can apply the color function, and let's change it to maybe red and run it. So now we have red box plots here. And another thing we can do is we can change the color of our facet grid by applying the palette attribute. Okay, let's see an example of that. Let's copy one of our previous facet grid functions. Let's copy that, for instance, paste it here, and what we can do here is apply the palette attribute in our facet grid and set it to any palette that you want. Let's say cool worm. Okay, so we have a cool worm here. Let's change it to a QSL. We have that. Let me copy this and show you one more palette. Let's try winter_r, and that's winter_r. And again, you can pass the size attribute, let's say 4, and aspect maybe 0.3. That doesn't look so good. Let's change the size to 8. I think I like this. So you can change the size and aspect ratios to a size that fits your needs well, to the size and aspect that you like the most. Okay, so we can use one or more, we can pass one or more attribute to our facet grids function. Just to summarize, we looked at facet grids in this lecture, and we saw that our facet grids, they have a 2x2 grid of facets, and once we initialize our facet grid, we can map our facet grid to either Matplotlib's various functions or Seaborn's function to display a nice grid of facets, and we can obtain lots of information from our facet grids. And by passing certain aspects, we can control the way in which our facets are displayed. Great. Thank you, everyone.